A brief timeline of our history from 1872 to 1898. Why study history? First, to get to know ourselves better. Second, to learn from and not repeat its mistakes. And third, to better appreciate our freedom today. Fourth, to develop our nationalism and patriotism. And lastly, to love our country more. Start of the fall of Spain, 1872. 1872 was a very important year. Soldiers from Cavite, led by a certain La Madrid, tried to rebel. They were easily beaten by Spanish forces. Three secular priests, the Gumburza, were indicted and executed for treason. The effects of 1872. The Filipinos were open to the atrocities and injustices of Mother Spain. During the Gumburza's execution, thousands of Filipinos bowed down to them. They were not killed by Spain, but instead, they were martyrs for the Filipino cause. Many people rebelled against Spain by means of civil disobedience. Rich families chose to send their sons to Europe for education, most of them remembering the grim events of 1872. These students would later be the frontrunners of the propaganda movement. The Gumburza would become the heroes of these people. They would become their rally point. The propaganda era, from 1873 to 1896, started with the death of Gumburza and the opening of the Suez Canal. Many Filipino families became richer because of trade. The Manila to Spain voyage was cut from 5 months to 2 months only. These families availed of higher education for their sons. These sons, in return, were open to the liberal lifestyle dominant in Europe. They began to speak out against the frailes and the Spanish government. Some wrote books and newspapers against the government, like Jose Rizal with his No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, and Graciano Lopez Jaena with his La Solidaridad, and again Jose Rizal with his organization La Liga Filipina. The prominent propagandists of that time were again Jose Rizal, Graciano Lopez Jaena, and Del Pilar. Fall of the propaganda movement. It fell in 1896 with the death of Jose Rizal. The propaganda movement wanted Spanish recognition, not full independence. Objective was not popular for the masses at home. They wanted full independence. More people joined the radicals because of this. The radicals were the Katipunan, which was led by Andres Bonifacio. The Katipunan's agenda versus the propagandists. In the end, more people joined the Katipunan because of 2 reasons. One, the Katipunan wanted full independence, while the propagandists did not. 2, the Katipunan leaders were more for the masses than the propagandists. It is also safe to say that the Katipunan leaders were closer to home than those of the propagandists who were at Europe. The leaders of the Katipunan. Firstly, Andres Bonifacio, the Supremo. Teodoro Plata, the Secretary of War. Bricio Pantas, Secretary of Justice. Aguedo del Rosario, Secretary of the Interior. Enrico Pacheco, Secretary of Finance. Emilio Jacinto, Secretary of State. Start of the Philippine Revolution. Started when the Katipunan was found by various Spanish priests. Bonifacio because of this, led the Katipuneros to Pugad Lawin. There, they launched simultaneous attacks across the 8 provinces. They also did the Cry of Pugad Lawin, start of the rift between Aguinaldo and Andres Bonifacio. Bonifacio lost almost every battle in the Greater Manila area, forcing him to retreat to Marikina and the Sierra Madre Mountains. While Aguinaldo in Cavite wins multiple strategic battles. This signals the start of the power struggle between the two. Andres Bonifacio the Supremo, while the young upstart Emilio Aguinaldo. The rift deepens. Two factions, the Magdalo allied to Aguinaldo and the Magdiwang allied to Bonifacio, argue about the issue of revolutionary government. The Magdalo wants elections, while Magdiwang wants retention of the Katipunan leaders I said earlier. The Tejeros Convention. Bonifacio goes to Cavite to sort out the mess. Agrees to hold a revolutionary election. Because of this, Aguinaldo wins the presidency while Bonifacio wins the lowly position of Secretary of the Interior. Even though Bonifacio wins the lowly position, Daniel Tirona, an ally of Aguinaldo, questions Bonifacio about the legality of his win. Lawyers should be there, Daniel Tirona says, a lawyer himself. He argues that Bonifacio is not a lawyer, therefore not fit for the lowly position of Secretary of the Interior. Bonifacio storms out of the convention in Tejeros and declares the election void and starts a separate government. This will lead to his death. The death of Bonifacio, 1897. Bonifacio declares the separate government I said earlier. He is found guilty of treason and he is sent to die in the Maragondon Mountains because of this. He is executed with his brother Procopio. His real tomb and the body is never found. The sad part is, he never sees the glory of the Philippines. The Philippine independence eludes him again. Aguinaldo is viewed as an anti-hero because of this, and a similar situation regarding the death of Antonio Luna during the Philippine-American War. Spain counterattacks. With the death of Bonifacio, the Spanish army focuses their armed strength at Cavite, knowing that the new president of the revolutionary government is Aguinaldo. Aguinaldo quickly loses gained land as they are pushed back towards Tagaytay and Batangas, losing at the battles of Imus and the Battle of the Zapote Bridge. The Philippine army is annihilated at major battles. The remnants of Aguinaldo's force stealthily set up Camp North at Biak na Bato. The Pact of Biak na Bato is signed. Aguinaldo and his men are sent to exile. They are paid 400,000 pesos. Philippine independence, June 12, 1898. With the help from the Americans, Aguinaldo returns to the country from Hong Kong. He declares independence on June 12, 1898 after winning 2 battles in Cavite. With America's help, the Filipinos push the Spaniards back to Manila. Virtually the whole island of Luzon is now liberated from the Spaniards. The Spaniards surrendered to Admiral George Dewey of the American Asiatic Fleet. He does not surrender to the Philippine Army. The war is over as the Filipinos celebrate. But another rift is at hand, for the Americans are planning huge battles. They would want the Philippines to be one of their colonies. Because of this, the Filipinos are not yet ready to fight another revolutionary war.